And I know your dad has two
multiple
Emmys
yes.
as an editor.
Yeah.
Do you display them or do you
Proudly. I say they're mine.
Yes, and I read.
You take them to the bars with you.
Yes. He would have songs that accompanied the story, and it kind of grew over the years as we were growing up. Our friends kind of got engaged in it, and they would want to hear the story and hear the songs. When I grew up and was a writer, I wanted to bring to the screen in an animated fashion.
That's awesome.
Sound design and music are what really just elevates something from what is this to wow, that is awesome.
Can we be friends? Can we be friends? Can we be friends? Can we be friends? Can we be friends?
Hi, everybody. Welcome to the Can We Be Frank podcast, where the whiskey may be on ice, but the talk is always straight up. Today, the whiskey is straight up as is, and it is very good.
Angel's Envy.
Angel's Envy.
So
It is good stuff. Cheers to you guys.
Cheers.
My name's Derek Kedell. I'm here with Mike Axe and Robert Zappia, as always. Let's dive right into the... Well, hold on.
Yeah, take a sip. That's important.
Take your time, Derek.
Yes.
Yeah, get it down.
Getting a sip in there. Let's dive right into the mystery topic. It's come around to...
It's your turn. That's right.
There's a recent story about ESPN getting in trouble because they they put down fake names on their Emmy participant lists so they could get trophies for people that wouldn't be eligible for them, namely mostly on-air personalities. I guess when you win an Emmy for something, it generally the statue goes to the producer of the show. The on-air personality doesn't actually win the Emmy. Okay. So they would put down fake names so they could give a trophy, one of the Emmy statues, or I guess it's not a statue, whatever it is, to on-air personalities. And they got a lot of trouble for that when management found out about it. They had to give them back.
Okay.
Oh, they had to give the Emmys back. Wow.
Well, they didn't lose the Emmy. They just had to give the statues back because the person wasn't an actual person on the production eligible for it.
Okay.
But I was sitting there going, okay, why would you want a statue that doesn't even have your real name on it? You can't say you won an Emmy. It doesn't make any sense. But I also feel bad because production is a team effort, and it normally just goes to the producer, the main guy, or the main director or whatnot, and everyone else gets a certificate. I just wanted to see what you guys feel about, should people get a little bit more recognition? No? Or does it go to the main guy? What are your thoughts on that?
Okay, well, here's my thought.
Let's hear.
It's going to be frank.
Okay.
It's going to be frank.
Now, the question is, should they?
Yes. Okay, we'll do both. Should they?
Sure.
Okay.
Do
In
they,
a perfect
by
world.
the current rule? I'm a rules guy.
Okay.
No.
Okay.
If that's the rules, fight the rules. Change the rules.
Sure.
And I understand, if a film gets Best Picture, the producers get the Oscar, right? The writer doesn't if he doesn't win Best Writing. The director doesn't if he doesn't win Best Directing. The actors don't. They're all, of course, important in making it a Best Picture. But the Best Picture Oscar goes to the producers, and it's certain producers. I don't think trying to circumvent that by creating false identities is probably
it
the
certainly
best way to
wasn't
go.
a smart idea. And the thing about it is I would love to be like, oh, I am an Emmy-winning production assistant, but well, you might be. Are you really? You know what I mean. Everybody contributes, so yes, you are. But it's also like, no, I think you need to save that for the you got to work your way up to be that person to win your Emmy.
Yes.
And I know your dad has two
multiple
Emmys
yes.
as an editor.
Yeah.
And I know you got to you have them. You got to keep them.
I did. Yes,
Yeah.
I have.
Do you display them or do you
Proudly. I say they're mine.
Yes, and I read. I
You take
wanted
them to the bars with you.
Yes, exactly.
Every restaurant.
I wanted to make sure that I was reading up on the rules about all this stuff after that, and I did read that it is allowable, obviously, for an heir to keep.
Are you trying to narc me out?
No,
like
no,
what
I
if
wanted
it
to make
wasn't?
sure. I wanted to make sure that
the Emmy
confiscate my
police are going
Emmys?
to come and
I wanted to make sure that if we mentioned this, you wouldn't get in trouble for having them. So I verified, because I'm that
That
type
it's
of
okay?
person, that it's okay for the heir to have it. You just can't sell it.
Oh, well, in that case, what's the
we'll
point of
sell
having
it.
them?
That's fine.
But here's the thing. What I have thought about doing, because the Emmy my father won in 1971 for Hee Haw,
Okay.
when I was like 8 years old, I thought, I'm going to shine my dad's Emmy. And there was something like
no.
SOS. I don't know if you remember these SOS
Oh yeah,
pads.
yeah. Oh yeah.
And I'm
SOS.
shining, and I'm shining they're kind of a natural brass color, and I'm shining it, and I'm thinking, oh, it's getting shinier. But what it was doing, it was rubbing off the brass, so to the silver that's beneath the brass coating. So the Emmy is now kind of
Slightly tarnished, I guess.
It's all your fault.
My dad, being the amazing person he is, could care less. But I have thought about, you can, for a small fee, be like, hey, I want a new one.
Oh,
Like
okay.
and I had also Brilloed the SOS, the inscription, the engraving, so
Right.
you can't quite say. So you can get a whole new, brand new Emmy. You just send back your old one, and they'll give you a spanking new one. But it's not the one he held.
Yeah,
it's not the one he
exactly.
won. It doesn't. So
It's-
And that's more, I think, more important to you
That's for
than
the charm.
yeah, I kind of like the shiny thing. But,
Okay.
that's
Well,
for
maybe you
the
could do it
charm.
for
but my
one of
wife
them,
is like
you know.
the sentimentality of it all.
It's kind of like the luggage bags where you get a brand new and then they say, well, when they
Oh,
get
that's true,
knocked
it's
around,
worn.
it like then it makes it like you've traveled, you've done this.
Yeah,
is
that's
your
true.
thing. So yeah, think about it that way.
Okay.
Yeah, but yeah, I mean, I'd love everybody to be able to be recognized on something
It's
like that.
true. There's a
But-
lot of hard
but
work that goes into things, but you can't give a statue to
You
everybody.
can't. Yeah,
You can't.
somebody
it's just
has to
not-
be the leader that accepts for everyone.
For everybody, yeah.
and whatnot, you know. So I just thought that was, and again, I get their sentiment. I get what they wanted to
Sure.
do. They wanted everybody to feel. But to be honest, if you're on air, that should be winning enough for you. You shouldn't be. They should be doing fake names to get production assistants or
yeah.
somebody.
Or you win for best on air personality. I mean,
Yeah.
like films that win Best Picture. I know it's pretty rare that the director doesn't also win, but a film that wins Best Picture and the writer doesn't win, I mean, that seems strange to me.
right.
Like, how can you have a Best Picture but the writer wasn't?
Sure, yeah, it is.
That's
weird,
where it all
right?
starts. But I don't think that they should use a false name so the writer also gets a statue.
Yeah, no,
Yeah,
for
no.
sure. That's not the way to do it. But interesting. There's all sorts of ways to try and cheat the system.
Yeah,
but I'm,
true.
I'm
They got
glad.
caught.
I'm glad they got caught, and they're going to get disciplined and do what they.
But
have
what's
to
the
do.
discipline? They just take it back?
I believe so. Well, it's vague now. The news story. More may come out when this is we put this out. But right now, it's just saying they gave the statues back and the employees were disciplined. So whatever that means.
Well, this kind of brings up the thing that happened at the Oscars not too long ago, right? Where they called the wrong
Oh, that was awful.
the Moonlight.
Well,
but
that you
it
feel
was-
bad for them, but
Right.
that
What are you going to do?
Yeah,
How does that happen?
right. They were.
Did they say how that happened?
They were old.
Well, I know
they,
why
like,
he read
misread.
what he read.
Why?
He was nervous, and he just.
But how do you
was old.
imagine
They
a
were
name?
old.
Well, he
Like, how
didn't
do you-
imagine the name. The problem is they put both the name of the person and the movie they're in.
Okay. And
On
was the
the-
person's name Moonlight? Or whatever it was?
No, it was for the. It was the wrong one. It was actually, I think it was Emma Stone's
For La La Land.
for La La Land, but they put Emma Stone La La Land. So when she ripped it out of his hands because he stuttered, she just saw the word La La Land and went, "Oh hell, that must be the winner."
So,
La
but it was
La
the
Land.
previous award.
Yeah, it was the previous
was for
award.
Emma Stone,
Was
but
for
it
Emma
was-
Stone.
but she-
So the problem was it said Emma Stone La La Land, and they just read La La Land, ignored the Emma Stone
And
part.
they handled it pretty well, I guess, for the whole thing. He's like, no, this is for Moonlight.
They
actually
handled it
won,
well.
so, yeah. But
that
yeah,
takes
that's
that has-
rough.
that's yeah, that's
that was a
gut-wrenching.
rough. I mean, yeah.
Well, it's like, who was it? Was it Steve Harvey who?
Oh,
yeah,
I read
the
the wrong
wrong-
name for Miss America.
Oh,
That's
Yeah. I
feel
horrible
so
as
bad.
well.
I guess they just try to one up everybody, because then you get the slap, the famous slap of
But that's
Will Smith and
But
Chris
that's
Rock.
why I think sometimes people might judge me. I always feel bad people judging me for when I'm like, hey, I want to see
Never
that.
feels good, Derek.
Well, no, but I meant when I'm like I want to see that email, and they're like, don't you trust me? I was like, well, I do, but I want to read it myself because
to make your own opinion.
Yeah.
I want to make sure, like, maybe you did misread it. I'm not saying you can't read. All I'm saying is seeing is believing.
And
So-
and
Sure.
maybe you'll give a different take on what's being written,
especially
there.
if it's something has to do with interpretation.
Yeah.
But I always feel bad. Like I'm not distrusting. I'm not trying to put you down. I just want to read it myself.
yeah,
And
give your own opinion.
So that's
You're
why I
frank.
was like, if
You
I
wanna
were
be
to win,
frank.
if I were to win,
Yes.
I'm going to be frank. If I were to win an award, I am taking that envelope and I'm going to sit there.
Oh, you want to verify if you win?
Yeah, I want to verify. I'm not going to take their word for it.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm going to be like, let me just double check and maybe it's the account
To
the
make
auditor.
sure.
Maybe.
I'm going to audit the
You're like the Westinghouse, whoever the people are.
PricewaterhouseCoopers.
Yeah,
PricewaterhouseCoopers.
PricewaterhouseCoopers.
I'm going to make sure that it says my name if when I win my whatever I win.
When
Yeah.
I like that.
When
You're
I
not
win.
saying
Good
if, I'm saying
thinking.
when.
Good thinking.
But anyway,
okay.
So speaking of your dad won those Emmys. Speaking
Yes.
of your dad,
Okay.
I know he was the genesis, I believe, for our topic for today, which is making an independent, in this case, animation that you did. I don't know how many years ago it was now.
That will be
2006,
2000.
right? 'Cause
Well, it
then-
came out
well, it's-
2006.
yeah.
It was like 2004, 2005. So almost 20 years ago.
Wow. So,
Yeah.
almost 20 years ago. But he was the genesis because it was based on a story. It's Christmas is Here Again. It was an animated, a feature-length movie that you had done. But it was based on a story he told you as a kid.
Yeah, he would tell my older sister and I this story, bedtime story, during the holidays when we were going to sleep. And he was also very musical. He came from a family of 12, and they all played a different instrument. So he would have songs that accompanied the story, and it kind of grew over the years as we were growing up. And he started to ask us, like, because we'd say, well, what happens next? Because we hadn't fallen asleep yet. And he'd say, well, I don't know. What do you think happens next? Because he was like running out of ideas. So it kind of became this familial story that he would tell us every year around the holidays. And then our friends kind of got engaged in it, and they would want to hear the story and hear the songs. And it became very much a family story that when I grew up and was a writer, I wanted to bring to the screen in an animated fashion.
That's awesome.
And obviously, it makes sense to be animated. When did you write it? Did you write it right before you went ahead with the whole process, or did you have it written and it was something that took time?
I had an outline that I had written for it before probably Halloween H2O.
Okay.
I had taken one of those hiatus periods in between shows and written an outline because it needed fleshing out to be a feature version. And then many years later, I think I had written a spec horror that went out, didn't sell, and I was feeling a little stale and jaded, and the idea of doing something independently came up.
So that was the genesis of why you decided to move
Yeah,
forward.
I had
with
been
it.
on a ton of general meetings, a ton of pitches, nothing was coming through. I had a spec go out, it didn't land anywhere, and I wanted to try and take control. Like,
Okay.
why am I waiting for someone to give me a job? I'm just going to create a job. And this is, at that point, our daughter was 2 years old. Wow. So our son was 6, 7. And, we would tell them the story, and they loved the songs, and we were living on the same property as my parents. So they were with their grandparents, so my dad would sing them the song. It was like so much a part of our, family that we thought, well, why don't we try and get this done independently? Now, it's more common now. I mean, independent films have always been a thing, of course, but certainly independent animation was a very unique
I'd say it
thing
has
to
be,
do,
yeah, because
you know?
animation, what a lot of people don't realize, I think, is animation is expensive.
It is.
And takes a lot of time.
And it takes a lot of time. So, and that bugs me as a person who's worked in animation now for 10 years. It's like I read these YouTube, and I know you shouldn't read YouTube comments for things that you've worked on, but these people are like, I don't know why they didn't do this, or why did you do this, and all this stuff.
Don't
And
leave
it
us
made
bad
it seem
comments
like we
this
threw this
podcast.
together in a week. And,
Right, yeah.
and they're like, I don't understand why you wouldn't do that. Well, there's so many considerations, time, money, and this thing that you watched on YouTube that was 5 minutes took us 6 months to put together.
Right.
Sure, yeah.
And quite a lot of money, more money than you would think to
Nobody
do all
realizes.
that.
Yeah.
that.
And people just think, the stuff's thrown together in a week.
Well, it's just like manufacturing anything. You're a consumer of the end product, right?
Yeah.
You don't understand everything that goes into that. And the same thing is true with a movie or an animation,
That's very true. But I have to say, I find myself guilty of doing the same thing, even knowing
Yeah.
all that goes into it, even knowing as a writer, all that goes into it and how much is out of your control. I still find myself being very critical.
I guess that's human nature.
Human nature,
Sure,
but
yeah.
They're
but
bad
it's frustrating
movies,
when
though.
you're on the end of it.
They're bad movies.
But they
though.
may not know it's bad.
Well, true.
like the last film I did, or even stay with Christmas is Here Again. It's a love it or hate it. I've found it's a 5-star or a 1-star. And there's people very critical of it.
Yeah.
Like somebody said they wanted to put an ice pick through their ears so they wouldn't have to hear the music.
Yeah.
So, you tend to focus on those, but it also has become kind of like a cult thing with people who grew up with it. It's now 20 years now.
Yeah.
But I've seen comments they show their kids and they're so happy it's available for them to see.
If you would have had more money, you think you would have done it differently?
Oh, absolutely.
Okay.
But even if not money, right? Like just the
experience.
Everybody, Renegade,
Okay.
you,
Yeah,
Jim,
I would have written a very
everybody.
different script. It would have been very different. It would have been, not only, you're right, not only money, even the same budget.
Okay.
It would have been better.
Different-
But I mean, that's
Because we've learned.
That's
we've
just
all
human
learned along
nature,
the way. Yeah.
Yeah, for sure.
I would have made different choices. But it was my first directing. It was my first independent. It was, directing big name talent.
Yeah, big name talent.
You're
came
talking
through
Jay
there.
Leno,
Andy Griffith.
Andy Griffith,
Ed Asner,
Ed Asner, Kathy Bates,
Norm Macdonald.
Norm Macdonald.
Shout out, yeah.
Brad Garrett.
Brad
Brad
Garrett,
And of
Garrett.
course, the biggest name of all, Dan
Dan
Roebuck.
Roebuck,
Yes.
who, when we talk about networking in previous podcasts, was someone who was a dad that went to of a son who went to the same school as my son.
So that's how you met
That's
Dan.
how we met.
You were both parents in the PTA line, or not the PTA line, the pickup line, or something like that.
Pam came home. They were in preschool together. I did not know this. Pam came home and said there was the most annoying frickin' father. It was like at a Halloween thing they did, and this dad was standing up and blocking everybody's view, and I kept telling him to sit down so I could see my son. Okay, so I said, oh boy, what a jerk. We go to another event like a week later, 2 weeks later, and I see, she's like, that's him. That's the dad. Now, this was at the time The Late Shift was on HBO where
yes,
Dan
yes.
played Jay Leno. And I loved that
Yep.
movie. I loved
So
it.
good.
I'm like, that Jay Leno? And she's like, no, not Jay Leno. That's not Jay Leno. I'm like, no, that's the actor who plays Jay Leno. That's the guy who was standing up. Well, our sons ended up becoming best friends. So, and he's a great guy. And Pam,
Well, I was, when you introduced us to him, my fan thing was he was in U.S. Marshals. I love that movie.
Oh, yeah.
And,
Fugitive.
The Fugitive
He
with
was-
Tommy Lee Jones.
He's done so much. in
Yeah,
his
he really
career.
has.
I
Oh,
really
he's done.
give
You
him-
look him up. He's done a million things.
Yeah.
Continues
He
to.
really, yeah. I mean, he's
Yeah.
he's a
But
hard
that was
worker.
like, wow, this dude is like legit. Like finally got to meet a real,
Yeah.
a real celebrity.
And plugging, independent films, you got to give a shout out to Dan.
Yeah, he
for,
does a
for
great
all
job.
of the great,
Oh my gosh,
movies
he's
that he
making
brings
these
through.
films
In Pennsylvania.
In Pennsylvania, on a budget. They're quality.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. They look great.
They look great. He's making it. This is what I'm saying. Like, there's a point where you stop waiting. Why you start saying, "Why am I waiting for someone to give me an opportunity?
Just
Make
make
it
it
I'm
yourself.
going to make my opportunity, and I'm going to do
100%.
it in a way that I'm happy." And that's what Dan's done. And
It takes a lot of hard work for that.
it does. It takes a lot of hard work, and I've been inspired by it. Which is, we're working on a project, on a script I wrote years ago that's independent.
Yeah, and you've been able to bring us on board, which is exciting for.
Yeah.
I'm not going to. I know it, I'm going to speak for Mike. It's exciting for he and I.
We'll do
For
it.
both of
That's
us.
a future
Sure.
podcast.
Yeah.
But anyways,
Sure.
but it's about independent
Yeah,
filmmaking. Yes.
But you were saying like the impetus for Christmas is Here Again more was I have the time. I'm gonna nothing else is hitting. I might as well try and
yes.
Go out and
now,
do it.
now that's easy to say.
okay.
But you need the money.
Right.
Sure.
So, but how did that come about?
Yeah,
Without going
money
into
is
too much.
always the hardest part.
It
right?
is. It was all friends and family, long and
Okay.
short of it. Mostly family, mostly
Okay.
mom and dad, nepo baby. No, but it was something that of course, because the origin was my dad,
Sure.
and it meant a lot to our family. So they were willing to invest in the film. So I'd say they came up with almost half the budget.
Wow.
Okay.
And then the other half was my sister invested, I invested, uncles and aunts and friends, we all
Kind of
invested
came
in the
together.
film.
It was crowdfunding.
Crowdfunding before crowdfunding.
Before crowdfunding.
Yeah,
but
that's very
let
true.
me ask you this. I mean, in this case, it was a family story, but
Yeah.
how did you go about pitching it to your friends and family who were investors? What did you have a presentation?
We did. We had a presentation. We had a whole breakout as far as like what the return could be.
Okay.
By that point, we had some talent attached.
Okay.
Dan was instrumental because Dan, having played Jay Leno,
He
knew
was
Jay
able to
Leno.
get Jay.
So he got Jay. In The Night Shift, he worked with Kathy Bates.
That's right. She
able to
was
get
so
Kathy
great in that
Bates.
movie and everything she does.
I'm trying to think who wasn't. He had worked with Norm on a sitcom We got Norm.
And he was on Matlock, so we knew Andy
We got
Griffith.
Andy Griffith.
What about Shirley Jones?
Shirley
Did he work
Jones
with
was, but once you get those people aboard,
right?
can
she
get
came
all-
on.
you can get
Yeah.
Shirley Jones, you can get Brad Garrett, you can get other people
Sure.
like, oh, all those people are involved. Ed Asner was my connection because of Thunder Alley was the
Sure,
sitcom I
yeah.
did with
Okay.
him. He was actually the first person we got
Oh, okay.
aboard. Yeah,
Okay.
But Mike and I have a story about that. If you remember from the first episode, we talked about autographs and how we're
Yeah.
involved in that. We would write celebrities. One of them we would write to for his autograph was Ed Asner, and one of them we decided, we were writing to him. And we were going to send a picture from Christmas is Here Again, the character he played.
Still have this one.
And so we sent him the thing in the letter, and I think we explained.
Of the character that he
Of the
played
character,
in Christmas
and-
Here Again.
okay.
And we sent it to him. I don't think we identified who we were, why we sent that picture.
No, we did not. Yeah,
We
wrote
were
it as a
hoping
fan.
we were hoping he was gonna reply with that, and the reply, he wrote a really nice loving note on the autograph, but that started with, "Who is this character?"
So he didn't remember.
Well, in all fairness, though, he didn't see the character design.
Okay.
As a first-time director, Ed Asner, Jay Leno, Kathy Bates,
Yeah, that's
Oscar
big
winner.
names. Big names.
I wanted to make sure I went in there and knew what I was doing. And Daryl came to all those record sessions as well.
Okay, great. Right. Daryl Van Sitters, he's the co-founder of Renegade Animation. So he's a pro at the industry. So I'm sure having him there was a help for you.
And particularly because the animation house we had originally signed to do the animation backed out. And as an independent, like this is the first time we were doing it. And we had found an animation house, it's called One Red Room, I think. And they had done some interstitials on Disney Channel. And we were all set. We had the contract, we had the budget, and we were set to record all the actors like the next week.
So you had everybody attached. Everybody was
Attached.
ready
We were
to
ready
go.
to go. And back in 2003, not everything was HD ratio.
Right.
So you had the 4:3,
Okay.
which is what most animation places were budgeting. And One Red Room, I said I really want it to be HD because I think eventually everything's
Smart.
going to be that.
Very, very smart.
And they agreed, but one of the reasons for backing out was like, this is just too much. This is too much. But I'm now stuck with all these actors and a recording, and we don't have an animation studio. So I had scheduled a lunch with Mike Gabriel, who's the director of Pocahontas. He worked for Disney for
okay.
many years. He's the brother of a dear friend, writer Steve Gabriel. The reason I had scheduled the lunch is to say, hey, I'm going to go direct these big talent actors. Do you have any advice?
Sure.
What that lunch turned into is, holy shit, I've lost my animation studio. Like,
What do you
I
do?
do? Like,
Yeah.
how do? And he says, well, gosh, my good friend Daryl Van Sitters has a animation company. They're right in Glendale, but I don't know if they're looking to do anything. But here's his number. Call him. So I call him. We go to lunch at Rafi's, which is a place in Glendale.
Oh, great.
yeah.
They
I
call
love
it the
that.
Rice,
The Rice
Palace.
Palace, yes,
You get
yes,
lots
yes.
of rice.
Yeah.
And we hit it off right from the beginning. It was me, Daryl Van Sitters, Ashley Postlewaite, and then the producer of Christmas is Here Again, Jim Prater,
Okay.
who I had met way back at When Dancer Home Improvement,
All
Carolyn
great
Company.
people, yeah.
And we just all hit it off right from there. And they agreed to do it for the budget that One Red Room had agreed to do,
Okay.
which they were
And
kind
do
of
it
like,
in HD, right?
in HD.
Yep.
And Daryl's like, yeah, I'm like, we're recording next week. Like, would you mind being there? He's like, I'll be there.
That's
You
so
know,
cool.
So yeah, and from there, now we're talking a 20-odd year, 20-year relationship with Renegade,
Yeah.
and they've hired us to do Jim and I to run Tom and Jerry for Warner Brothers for 2 seasons. We've
Ashley
ended
hired
up-
us. Yeah.
Ashley hired you two.
Yeah.
Ashley hired me to do ABC Mouse, but Dan Roebuck
Okay.
said to ABC Mouse, hey, there's an animation company across the street that you should do some animation
So
on your site.
do you know how Dan got connected to Age of Learning? Like,
I think it was through Glendale Center Theater.
oh, okay.
He did
'Cause
because Dan does a lot. I think he likes
like
doing
theater,
stage,
right? Like,
No,
yeah.
we
Yeah.
saw a
Scrooge.
Christmas Carol. Scrooge,
yeah,
or
Christmas
whatever.
Carol, whatever it was.
Yeah,
years ago. But
You know,
yeah,
it's Circle. It was. I think it may have closed now, or is it open?
I think it is closed now.
But it was,
Oh, is it
it was
really?
a
I
stage
think
in
it
the,
is.
what's it called? Stage in the round.
Yeah.
Yeah, it
That's
was a very
closed?
cool venue. I
It
think
might
it.
be.
I think.
Oh,
I'm
I
not
don't,
certain.
don't take our word for it if it's not. Tweet us.
Nobody cares.
Yeah,
Tweet,
but
tweet. Come on, what are you
tweet
from
or
19
X or whatever it is.
X.
X
What do
is
you
now,
say
or-
now?
Yeah, what do you say?
I don't even know now.
I don't
Okay.
know. X.
Send a
Muscus.
X's sounds really
Musk.
bad. Yeah, Muscus. Yes. But
Better
yeah,
ways.
okay. So, but he had some connection through them and got them connected there, which is how you guys were able to get the Age of Learning,
Yeah.
bring on Mike,
Yes.
which then brought on me, and
Yes.
it's been a 10-year
here
ride
we are.
since then.
Yeah.
Here we
And
are.
and talking about like networking, but with people you like and friends, like Daryl and Ashley are just salt of the earth people.
Good people.
Oh
Like,
yeah,
they're
I've
just-
enjoyed my time with them. It's been
Yeah.
great. I'm looking forward to doing more with them.
Yeah. They're such good
But
people.
as far as so it ended up obviously working out well, and we made the film, and it was an incredible experience. And
Now you did
That
now-
was, well, speaking of Christmas here again, and when the film came out, that was
Yeah.
the first time that I met you in person, I remember.
that's true for
'Cause
for the premiere. We
for the
rented out a
premiere.
theater, the Crest Theater in
In-
Westwood.
Yep, in Westwood.
And
I
you
remember.
flew out
It was
for
the
that.
first time I came to LA.
That's
It was
crazy.
the first time I'd been on a plane. I remember I was at Pitt, and I flew out with Lauren Smith at the time. She's married now, Lauren Deasy, and
a friend of ours. Yeah.
a friend of ours, and we came out here for the first time, and
Yeah.
I met you and,
then we
your
went to
family.
the house. to
Yeah,
the
we went to
backyard,
Toluca Lake there. Yeah, and you had a nice big spread. It was
Yeah.
really great. And I met Dan. He was at the premiere, but then I went to his house and saw
Oh,
all of
his
his
museum.
yeah. Oh my gosh, amazing museum of all
Yeah.
these great collectibles and horror things that he's into.
Is that where we took the picture? The one with?
I
is that a
don't think it
different
was
time?
that visit. I think it was
Okay.
another visit. But yes, yeah, we were in Dan's.
And then shortly thereafter, we got into the Heartland Film Festival with Christmas
Right.
is Here Again
That's
in
right.
Indiana, and you came out.
I
you
drove out from
for
Pitt.
that.
Yeah, that was a lot of fun too.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Did you have
Now-
some success there, or was
We
it?
did, yeah. Well,
Okay.
it's hard to get into that festival.
Okay.
And Heartland Film Festival is a very respected festival. So we got just being in that was great for us because at that point we did not have distribution,
Okay.
so that helped get us distribution.
That's great.
because
Awesome.
it means something to people.
That's really
Yeah.
great.
Now you said a lot of your funding was family and friends, but it still was hard, I'm sure.
I will tell you, 20 years later, it still weighs on me.
Okay.
Right? Because if it was a studio, like, okay, Pray for the Devil, Halloween H2O, name the project. You want it to do well. But if it doesn't do well or they don't make their money,
It's corporate
It's
money.
not.
it's corporate money, and
Yeah.
you're like, well, they'll make it on the next thing or whatever. When it's friends and family, it just weighs on you, you know,
Sure.
because you want to make people whole. You want people to be happy they invested. You want, all those things. And while it's had a level of success that's been fantastic, it's not the level that I thought it would.
Okay.
And so I feel bad for maybe being overly optimistic about what those results would be. Like if I were to do it now, I think I'd be less rosy about it. Like, hey, listen, there's a lot of risk. It may not pay off.
I
know,
you got
I
to
know.
sell it though.
well,
Yeah.
and I believed it,
yeah,
know.
well,
and that's good.
That is
important.
good. And
yeah.
I think anybody that invests or has that kind of money, hopefully has that kind of money to invest, knows the risk. But you have to be passionate about it. So I definitely understand your reservation.
And
Right.
and what you've done is bring a story that you grew up with, that your kids
Right.
grew up with, to the screen,
That's
and not
true.
only to the screen, to the stage. That's been
Oh, that's
it's been a
right.
musical.
Yeah.
yeah, it
as
got
well,
adopted
which-
into a musical.
Yes.
I remember I was a little emotional the first time we saw it, because I was just like, this
Yes,
is so
it's
great to
not this.
share the experience. I know your mom was there,
Yes.
and it was just really great to see this. I'm like, wow, this is your story from growing up that your dad told you, and
Yeah.
there's something very special about that. I know that maybe it didn't make the money that you wanted it to
Right.
make, but I think it's a very meaningful project.
Oh, that's
You
a
should be
great
very
thank
Yeah,
you.
no,
Yeah.
I appreciate
it
that.
was I loved
And
it.
all the investors, I will say, there's been no one that's not echoed that sentiment.
Because
Good.
I think
They've all
because
been great. But I just feel
I know,
no, I
but
get
they
it.
wanted to invest in you, and it turned
True.
out
yes,
you made the best movie that you could.
absolutely. Yeah.
Absolutely.
And speaking of which, you got to direct that. I want to ask you. I know your bread and butter has been writing,
It has.
but that was your. Is it your only foray in directing to date, or you've done a little bit more
Professionally?
Professionally,
Yes.
Okay.
I
So,
always wanted, in my youth
okay.
and through film school, the goal was directing.
Okay.
Writing was I stumbled
It
on.
means to an end.
Yeah.
Okay. But did you? Okay. But I wanted to say, like, what did you think of that experience directing? I
loved
know
it.
it's an animation; it's a little different than
I
live
loved
action.
it.
But
and everybody was so gracious. And I was probably most nervous
Yeah, I was gonna
with
say,
Kathy Bates.
Kathy Bates, yeah.
wonderful. Like just so open to hearing all of everybody. And I had met with Mike Gabriel. I had met with Matt Williams, who created Roseanne, Home Improvement. He had directed Where the Heart Is with Natalie Portman. He had done a number of films and got his advice. I'd read books that say never give a line reading.
No, yeah, you don't do
The
that.
worst thing you do
Yeah,
is give a line reading. So I'm in with Kathy Bates, and I'm telling her, oh, this is how she feels. This is her emotion. It's as if. She's like, well, how would she just tell me how she'd say it? What's the reading?
Oh no.
She asked
You
for a
think,
line
it,
reading.
you think it was a
reading.
test though? Like, were you?
I don't
like,
know. I said, well, I mean, I'm not an actor, but something like, okay, great. Oh, okay, I see what you mean.
It is really hard to not do that.
telling Kathy.
You know,
Bates.
I've been in
Do it
voice.
more like this, Kathy.
I've been in voice records, and to say Daryl a lot with Daryl. Daryl's been the director on the ones that I've been in. He's never given it, but you're right. Sometimes the actor asks that question, and like you feel this obligation. You know, as you know, as the manager producer, I was like, I want to answer your question, but the only way I can do it is if
You're not an actor.
If I give you the
Yeah,
reading,
exactly.
or
I'm gonna give. Yeah, exactly.
yeah, and I was like, I'm not going to tell you how to act. You know, voice
That's
acting.
very true.
Voice acting is a very, it's a lot harder than you think.
Yeah.
I want to say that. Like,
Oh, yeah.
I think some people, kind of like I was going on earlier about, they think an animation is made in a week. Voice acting isn't any less difficult than
It's
live
shorter.
action acting.
There's not as much time put
Right.
into it, but I think you need the talent.
You do need to have
behind
that
it.
talent to be able to visualize it and to emote without, sometimes without you can't use your body.
Sure. Yeah.
You know,
Or
you
the way
need to
that
do
you-
it all vocally.
Yep.
That then the animator can base his animation off of.
and make those emotions. They're
Exactly.
yeah.
And make
it-
those.
Yeah.
So
One of the best voiceovers that we had the fortune to see was Mark Hamill at Warner Brothers.
Oh, that's
Remember
right.
That?
Yes,
that was
when
on a Tom and Jerry.
On
we
Tom
had
and Jerry,
done
he
a
did-
Christmas special. Tom and Jerry. Mark
That's right.
Hamill was the voice of Santa.
Santa, yeah, and we got to go to Warner
That
Brothers.
was
It was like
amazing.
5 people
That
in
was
there.
so fun.
Well, it was right before the new ones had come out.
Yeah.
And, oh, it was so cool.
And
Like,
he was great. He was very personable. And
so
We
personable.
asked for
and nice.
pictures. You know,
He took
was-
pictures, and he did the Joker laugh from Batman, which was so cool. Like,
Yeah,
he was great.
You know, people have all these stories about celebrities they've met. I've never met one that I didn't have a pleasant experience with. Not that I want to. This is the whole show's about being frank, and I'm sure they've heard it before. Have either of you?
Oh,
So you have.
had a negative
Yeah,
experience.
Uh-oh.
I personally haven't. I haven't met a lot of
Never meet your heroes.
them. Okay,
Yeah.
is that a
Do you want an example?
sure? Give me one that you're comfortable giving.
Okay, I'll give you.
Yeah,
Do
let's
you
hear
have
it.
one?
No. Most people have been nice.
Okay. Well, I have 2 examples. One is not mine,
Okay.
but is an interesting story.
All right.
But the one that was mine,
Yeah.
never meet your heroes, so it's Emmy night, Creative Emmy night. My father was nominated. My wife and I went as guests with my mom and dad. I'm in a tux. My wife's in a gown. We're all respectable people here.
Of course.
We go to the Creative Emmys. I think it was in Pasadena. And this was in the mid-90s. Wife had to use the restroom. I walk her to the restroom, and there,
Uh-oh. Who is it?
standing at a table, is George Lucas.
Oh wow!
Now, George Lucas, like Star Wars, I was 8.
Yep.
Is the reason I'm in the business. Like, sorry, Dad, but like that was the reason. So I think I scream out, "Oh my God!" when I see him, and my wife said, "What?" I'm like, "George Lucas is over there." She's like, "Oh my God, you've got to go say something to him. You've
Yeah.
got to."
Yes.
And I'm like, "Absolutely," which is not me, right? Because I normally would shy away. I said, "But you got to go away. Like, go to the bathroom." So I walk up. He's talking to the table. At the time, Young Indiana Jones was on television, and it was nominated for something. So his back is to me, and he's talking to this table of people. So I stand behind him, and I wait. And he finishes, and he turns to leave the table, and I say, "Oh, excuse me, Mr. Lucas. My name's Robert Zappia." Now I'm in a tux. I'm at the Creative Emmys. I'm not a threat here.
Sure. Yeah.
I say something to the effect that, like, I know you probably hear this all the time, but Star Wars was a seminal moment for me. It's the reason I got into the business. And, so blah, 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 blah. And he goes, anyway.
Oh,
And he turns back to the table.
oh, jeez.
Anyway.
Like
He doesn't thank me. He doesn't.
Doesn't shake your hand or anything.
No.
Nope. Nothing.
Just anyway.
think they train them just to be like, oh, yes.
Crushed.
That's
So
terrible.
Pam comes out, my wife, and I'm like on the verge of tears. And we go, so how'd it go? I'm like, it was terrible. So I sit and pout at the table. My dad loses the Emmy. He doesn't win. It was just a bad night. No, but anyways, I hear he's very socially awkward.
I was hoping that the story would be that Pam went and kicked his ass.
Well, which would not be unreasonable to think. Because her personality is
She's the best.
She can do that.
She takes good care of you.
But
Protects you.
but she does. But the other story, that's the only celebrity I think I've met where it's not been a great outcome. Otherwise, they've been lovely. When I was on, I'm actually telling Matt Williams the story. Again, creator of Home Improvement. He, Roseanne. I'm telling him the story about George Lucas, and he goes, "Oh, never meet your heroes." I was in New York, and I'm at a gym, and Neil Diamond's on a treadmill, and I go up to him, and I'm like, "I love you. I'm such a fan," and he totally snubs me. He was such a jerk. He didn't. He's like, So I go home to my mom, who's a Neil Diamond fan, like Turn On Your Heart Light and all the songs. I'm like, Mom, Neil Diamond was such a jerk to Matt. Like he completely ignored him in a gym. She's like, I'll never listen to another album of his. 10 years go by, maybe 10 or 15. And I'm telling Matt, I think it was at that lunch where I was asking him about advice for Christmas Is Here Again. I'm telling Matt about, my mom, when I told her that story about Neil Diamond, she's never listened to Neil Diamond since. And he goes, who? And I go, Neil Diamond. When you went to him in the gym, he said, not Neil Diamond, Neil Simon, the playwright.
Oh.
So Neil Simon was the jerk. So I had to tell my mom, you've boycotted Neil Diamond.
And you can
for
listen
no
to him
reason. You
again.
can listen to him again. So the embargo was raised, but you could not see a Neil Simon play. She couldn't watch The Odd Couple. Where,
funny.
anyways, yeah. But other than that,
Yeah, no, I everybody's
people
been
seem
lovely
to
that I've
be
met.
nice. I don't think any.
Yeah, I can't
I've heard
think of
stories, of course, but I've not.
Yeah.
Not first-hand accounts.
I'd like to say that we got ice cream with Jay Leno, but it was more we were getting ice cream and Jay Leno came to get ice cream. But he couldn't have been nicer.
He's the nicest guy.
He
really,
couldn't
he
have been
is.
nicer to
Every
my
time we see
dad
him.
and showing him that steam car and everything, after
And we see him driving around Burbank
all the
a
time.
lot. Yeah. So
But he couldn't
always
have been
waves
nicer
and-
to my dad. I had him in town for the week, and it was just like, because I didn't take him. We didn't see any celebrity. They didn't have the LA experience until then. I felt
cool,
like
yeah.
that was like, oh, good. Towards the end here, we got to meet,
and a good one. A really
good one. A very
good-
positive
very
experience.
nice. He was so nice.
Oh, that's
he
great.
Really is. Yeah.
He's a great guy.
Yeah. So
I miss him on late night, but
Yeah.
he's doing good on I guess stand up.
I miss him. I miss Letterman. I miss.
Yeah,
I
they're
miss
all
Craig
just-
Ferguson.
I miss
Oh,
Johnny
Craig
Carson, guys.
Johnny
Sorry.
Carson is so good. Yeah, no,
But go on. Yes.
Yeah, everybody. It just I miss late night.
Yeah.
Good late
in
night
general.
Yeah, same.
But
It's not the late night
before
we used to know.
before we move on, I do have one more thing about Christmas Here Again. I wanted to ask you about,
Yes.
and it was you had said you didn't have distribution. I just wanted to ask, like, what happened then? How did you get distribution for your? So you made the whole movie.
We made the whole movie.
Okay.
We had a 35 millimeter print. Like it could be theatrical. It could be digital. It was HD. It was every format. We rented the theater out at Universal, and we reached out and just contacted distributors and invited them to a screening.
Okay.
We had kids from my kids' elementary school in the theater,
Okay.
so the distributors could kind of get the
Smart.
reaction.
Very smart.
Great.
We did that like 2 or 3 times, and we got some bites, but nothing really that we wanted to take. There was one screening we had for one. His name was Sam Tolles, and he was late, and he came in smoking, and he did not want to be there. He like hardly said anything to me or Jim. He just kind of walked into the theater, and this was a screening just for him. We had it arranged.
Wow.
Oh wow.
So the film's going. I said to Jim, the film's over. He's like, do you want to go meet him? I was like, there's no point. Like, let's just get our print. We were showing the 35 millimeter print, and let's just go. I'm sure he probably left before it ended. And as we come down, he's waiting.
Oh.
And his attitude is 180.
Wow.
Wow.
He looked like a kid. He was like, I loved it. Oh my God, we got to be a part of this. It was Illumination.
cool.
We worked for Illumination, not Illumination. Illumination
Okay.
with an A. But anyways, that is kind of where we started. Unfortunately, it didn't end up being with Illumination. It ended up being with Screen Media, which made a better deal. But again, with networking, Sam always remembered the film, and I ended up getting other work through Sam and things. But yeah, it was just from
That's cool.
inviting distributors out to see a screening in a theater. Some of them were annoyed; they wanted a screener. But we were
Okay.
really adamant about them seeing it in a theater.
theater.
Come out to Universal, come sit in the theater with a group of
It's an experience.
of children so you can see it through their eyes.
Yeah. That's awesome.
Yeah, that's great, and it's about persistence. To keeping
is.
it.
It is.
Don't give up and just
Don't.
Yeah, you just keep going
showing
and,
it to
and believe
people.
in it.
Keep going.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, and it's not for everybody, but somebody's going to appreciate. Like Sam, who came in just he was so annoyed. He was so annoyed.
Great. That's great, and that's the big thing about just independent filmmaking is persistence.
It
Yeah.
is.
And
Keep going.
believing in your project
In your
Keep
vision.
going.
and making it
Keep
happen.
going,
And
keep
that's what
going.
our upcoming project. We're excited to bring more information about that once we get
Coming
it going.
soon,
But
yeah.
it's just about being persistent and not letting any setbacks derail your process.
Yeah, you can't let them derail.
No,
That's the
including
thing.
losing your animation company a week before.
Yeah.
Well,
Like,
yeah,
you have to just
exactly.
keep
Like,
moving
yeah.
forward.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right, is it time for the question?
Yes,
what's
it is.
the
It's time
question?
for the question from
Catholic High.
Hello, my name is Autumn Lipson, and I'm a senior at Lancaster Catholic. What is the best part of the production process?
No, you go first.
Yeah, go
Okay.
ahead.
Well, mine.
You have a strong
I have an
opinion.
answer.
I
but-
do have a very strong opinion.
best part of the
for me,
production
especially
process.
for animation, is post production.
Oh.
Obviously, having a great script is important. Having great animation is important.
You better say that.
Having a great story is important. Great storyboarding and all the different parts. Having great animation is important. But as a person that watches it through the stages before the final project or product, it doesn't really come to life until the editor has really tightened it up and helped craft the story. Sound design and music are what really just elevate something from what is this to wow, that is awesome. So for me, post-production is the best part of the process. When they add the sound effects and the music comes in, it just really brings everything together. And it's the moment where I feel, obviously, because you're towards the end, that you have a final product. And to me, it's the most fun, and it's what I look forward to the most is when I hear the episode or the cut together with music and sound effects. So.
It's funny. I'm the polar opposite of that.
Oh, really?
I would say I really enjoy the early phase, the development. I mean, I remember back at Age of Learning and sitting in the room with you and Jim and, just hearing the ideas and we would just have fun.
The iteration.
And just the funniness.
Eating it out.
Yeah, exactly. Like putting it all together and putting, all of the stories together and just kind of visualizing it in your own mind. And for me, it was interesting to discover how that idea that was only spoken about and then only written about on a page comes to life. And sure, I think it's awesome in post-production to see that finally like all come together. But I would say, the part that makes me most excited and the part that makes me like, wow, this is really, really great. And this is so much fun is the very, very beginning, the
interesting.
conceptualization of that, the light bulb almost.
The light bulb moment.
And not only just the light bulb moment, because that's really cool, like having the idea, but talking it out, fleshing it out, thinking about it, like, oh, there's so many possibilities. We could do all of these great things. And what ends up coming of that is interesting. What about you?
Well, fade out on a first draft is my favorite part. But that, if we're talking production, like
because that's the point of the script where you're like, I'm done.
I have a draft.
I have a draft.
good.
I can write the word fade out.
Exactly. But beyond that, I agree, post. And I think post-production, part of that goes just to my youth and the nostalgia of being at a bay with my dad and just they say a film is written 3 times, one by the writer, one by the director, and one by the editor.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
And I feel like there's so much that can be done in editing that takes the vision of the writer and the director and kind of take it in a different direction.
And a common production saying that I use a lot is we'll just fix it in post.
Fix it
Yeah.
in post.
Is,
Oh yeah.
You know, when you're up against a schedule, you know, you're trying to get everything done. You're just like, don't worry about it. We'll fix it in post. 99% of the time,
You can do that.
You can
Yeah,
do that.
1% of the time.
1% of the time, you got to do
SOL.
retakes, and you're completely
Go
shit out of luck.
reshoot,
But I do believe fix it in post is not only
Something to live by.
is a mantra to live by as a producer.
And I think that was the name of a post house, which was brilliant. It was like,
Yeah,
fix
that's
it
a
in
great
post.
one. Yeah, that's awesome.
But anyways, I agree with you.
I
yeah,
agree.
we can fix it then
Yeah.
at the end.
Yep.
Cool.
Great. Well, that's another episode in the can, as we say in the industry. So thank you all for tuning in. Look forward to putting out some more episodes for you. And I want you guys to be excited for some of the upcoming episodes. We're going to talk a little bit about the arbitration process that Robert mentioned in one of the previous episodes. And we're also going to talk a little bit about converting a screenplay into a graphic novel. And we have some great guests planned for you guys in the future. So stay tuned and check our social media for updates when new episodes are coming out.
Yeah.
All right, guys.
Sounds good.
Thanks.
Thanks.
Cheers.
Cheers.
Thank you.
Can we be frank? Can we be frank?